Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. Tiffany here of Tiffany Gordon Cosplay, and on today's cosplay tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to make Arcane Jinx's Fishbone from the game League of Legends, and it also comes apart. So hopefully you'll find this video helpful, and remember to subscribe to this channel, like the video, and we can get started. And for this build, you're gonna need 2, 4, 6, and 10mm EVA foam, CPVC pipes sizes 1/2, 3/4, and 1 inch, Sharpies, X-Acto knife and box cutter, Cost Tools circle cutter, Cost Tools hole drills, a cutting mat, Dremel and sanding drum, heat gun, a ruler, contact cement glue, and of course all of your safety gear. And I have links to all this in the description. And let's not forget about a blueprint to help you make this. It is a blueprint of fish as well as a pattern for the face. And that is available on my website, www.tiffanygordonCosplay.com, or see the link. Now for making Fishbone, it is really a series of circles throughout the piece. And for getting all of the measurements for how to make these circles, I first got the diameter of each piece, which I then did the formula for getting the circumference, which then gave me the length of our rectangle, as well as from the right image, getting the width of how much I wanted it to be. And this gave me the formula for each of the individual pieces, making them into rectangular shapes. As well as for parts that are a 2D blueprint, you do want to make them in the round. And for this, typically the pieces, I will just extend them about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So for this piece, for instance, I extended line A to line B and then cut that out. And this would make it so it would fully go around the piece that I wanted. And basically, I did this for the entire piece, tracing each one as the base pieces onto 4mm EVA foam, and then all of the trim, the thicker parts that I wanted to be, onto 10mm EVA foam, and proceeded to cut each piece out with either an X-Acto knife or a box cutter. And then the next step is to sand, and for this I went to my workbench and used a sanding drum, sanding each piece nice and flat, and attaching all of the trim with contact cement glue onto their correlating pieces. And for each of the pieces, I did end up mirroring them. So for this piece, because there are 2 halves, I then sanded the parts that would attach together at a 45. And with the use of contact cement glue, attached the 2 pieces together after. And for assembling all of the pieces, I started off with the tail, working my way towards the face as the very last step. And for this, for the very bottom tail part, I started to attach the pieces together until I had the bottom part of the bottom tail, and continuing to attach the rest of the pieces to the bottom part of the tail until it looked like this. Next was to move on to the next circle part, and again I did the same formula I mentioned at the beginning of the video of creating the rectangle to make a circle and then attaching all of the pieces to it to look like this. I did also add a closure to each side of these circles, so that way it would make it a lot easier to attach both of these pieces together. And moving right along to the next piece, for this, again, I did rectangles and cutting out of various thicknesses, either 10mm, 6mm, just depends on how thick I wanted that individual piece to be, and added details with Cost Tools hole drill kit, making the circle sections on the tail, and then sanding everything nice and smooth. And a little tip for attaching a lot of pieces onto a circular piece, a lot of times I'll actually attach them while they are flat first. This way I can make it all nice and pretty and sand more if I need to. And then afterwards, I will apply contact cement glue to both the ends of the rectangle. And once the glue is dry, you can then attach the pieces together to make your circle. And once again, don't forget to close each of the ends of the circle. And for this, I used Cost Tools circle cutter to cut the circle that I needed out of 4mm EVA foam. And then attached that section to our already made tail. And it looked like this. Now to talk about the main body part of Fishbone. And for this, again, make a really large rectangle. And for this, I did it out of 10mm EVA foam, as well as cutting decorative strips for the sides of it out of 6mm, and sanded the edges of the 6mm EVA foam strips and attached it to the rectangle flat. And once they were attached together, I then could glue the seams together to make our new circle. I will also note that I did sand the edges of these at a slight 45, which does make it not quite a circle, but it made it a lot easier to attach. In this part, we would actually be hiding under the saddle part, and I'll talk about that in a bit. And after that was done, I then cut out strips of 10mm EVA foam and then applied contact cement glue onto both pieces, let it fully dry, and then attach this part to the main body. I will also note it's a lot easier to know where it's going to attach by taping it on first and tracing it with a Sharpie, so that way you know roughly where to attach it. And now to talk about the handle, and for this I used CPVC pipes size 1 inch, cutting it to a desired length that I wanted, attached it to a EVA foam piece I sanded to the shape that I wanted, and then traced where I wanted it to sit on this middle section and cut it out with an X-Acto knife before gluing it together. And here's what the middle section looked like. An Urzuka! And then I attached it to the tail. For the saddle section of Fishbone, I ended up, like in the beginning of the video, extending the side profile of this piece upwards about 1 inch, cutting this out of 4mm EVA foam and the trim out of 10. And for the hole sections on the saddle, I used Costools hole drill kits, cutting 2 circles for each hole because these are oval shapes, and then to my workbench where I then sanded the holes to make them look nicer, as well as all of the trim and also the saddle 2 section pieces at a 45 so they would connect a lot easier. And once all that was done, I could then attach each piece together using contact cement glue, as well as doing the same process for more details on the saddle. And here's what the saddle piece looked like once everything was attached and together. And once again, attached that piece to the rest of the body and tail. And this is what it looked like so far. And remember that I said this piece would come apart into 2 sections? Well, this would be the end of this one piece because this is the length that would fit in my suitcase. And the head section is going to be a separate piece, and I'll go over later how I did the attachments. Now to talk about the face, and for this I made a pattern and I traced the piece out onto 4mm EVA foam, and there's guidelines on this pattern. For these, you will want to cut that section out at a 45 and remove the foam. This will make it so your pattern will end up folding into the face shape. And I'll also recommend, if you're cutting out these sections with an X-Acto knife, you may want to go and sand these sections to make them a little bit more flat, as this will help with your seams coming together better. And once that's done, you can apply contact cement glue to the edges as well as to your seams. And when your glue is dry, you can slowly start to attach all the pieces together to form the face. And if your seams are a little off, you can always go back to your workbench and sand the seam so that way it looks nice and round. And here's what it should look like as of now. And let's not forget about little details like eyes, as well as I cut out a long strip of foam to attach to the face. Now for the lower jaw, and for this I cut the shape of the jaw 3 times onto 10mm EVA foam and glued them together. First sanding them flat to get all of the seams nice and pretty, and then rounding the edges so that way it looked a little bit more mechanical, I guess? And for the teeth, I cut each piece out of 4mm and then cut out a center strip. This way each of the teeth can fold. And then slowly became a dentist and attached each of the teeth to the jaw with contact cement glue. There's also one more piece, a part of the face, and that's the circle that goes in between the upper face and the lower jaw. And for this, I cut out a rectangle, glued it together, capped the edges with more foam, and then sanded it, first attaching it to the lower jaw, and then attaching it to the upper face section. And if you don't want the piece to disassemble, you can go ahead and attach the face to the body at this point. But for me, I need to be able to fly with this prop. So here is how I made it be able to attach and disassemble. Using 2 small pieces of 1/2 inch CPVC pipes, I attached them to a strip of 2mm EVA foam. This will make it so it will always be that same distance throughout the project. And then I traced where the distance was onto a 4mm EVA foam shape, which is going to be the shape of the back section of the head, and cut out the circles using Kostrel's hole drills. I then inserted the CPVC pipes into the foam pieces, not having them attached first, and then applied contact cement glue to both the back of the head as well as this piece. And then when the glue was dry, I could then insert the CPVC pipes fully into the foam and then attach this piece to the back of the head. And then for the body part, I ended up cutting a few extra pieces of circles, so this way it had a little bit more thickness for the pipes to go through, traced where they hit with the foam, and cut those parts out with Kostrel's circle cutter, and then glued it to the body. And the absolute final step for this to finish your fishbone is to do a light heat treat onto all of the foam using a heat gun, and then it's done! And that, guys, is how I made Arcane Jinx's fishbone from the game League of Legends. I hope you found this video helpful for making your very own one. And if so, let me know in the comments, like this video, and subscribe to the channel. A big thank you to all of my sponsors here, as well as all of my members, especially my legendary members on YouTube who help support make more content videos like this, so consider supporting the channel. And I will see you for our next tutorial, which will be how to paint this. So check that out. How I made not this take. What do you think, Levels? Is he your friend? Fish are friends and not food? Rawr, rawr, rawr.